afternoon, everybody. I'm Tania de la Garza, and on behalf of the Global Evaluation Initiative, I extend a warm welcome to Global 2023. The Evaluation Week is a unique knowledge-sharing event, connecting a global community of people across sectors and regions. To make the most out of this knowledge-sharing space, and in accordance with the growing effort to advance monitoring and evaluation practices and culture in Latin America and the Caribbean, this session, entitled Opportunities to Strengthen Collaboration in a Regional Context, it's co-organized by Caribbean Evaluator International and ReLAC, Network for Monitoring, Evaluation, and Systematization in Latin American and the Spanish and Portuguese-speak Caribbean, with the purpose of gathering stakeholders to continue discussing relevant topics that will help advance in fostering an enabling environment in the region for sharing, recognizing, designing, and implementing monitoring, evaluability, and learning practices. The LAC region is composed of 46 countries. Similarities and differences can be found even at the subregional level. In this session, ReLAC and CEI, the regional VOPEs in Latin America and the Caribbean, will share their views on how to work together, acknowledging our differences while taking advantage of our similarities and looking for a bright future of M&E for all the region.
For some reason, I suddenly can't hear anything.
Valerie, you cannot hear us?
Log out and log back in.
Yes, go ahead, Valerie. As you all know, this is live, so we have a lot of technical issues around here. So if you please write, Alonso, if you please write to Valerie to log out and then log in, it will be great. Let's go on. By exploring the three elements of this year Evaluation Week, context, culture, and collaboration, the panel will showcase the benefits of building together and working to translate differences into joint work opportunities. Allow me to introduce you the panelists who will be joining us this session. Celeste Anguiano and Alfredo Dominguez represent ReLAC, while Valerie Gordon and Nadine Persaud represent CEI. Let me tell you a little bit about them. Nadine Persaud, PhD, CPA, CGA, is a tenure lecturer in evaluation in the Department of Management Studies at the University of the West Indies in Barbados. She teaches primarily at the graduate level and has served as coordinator of the Master of Science program in Project Management and Evaluation. The recipient of a Fulbright scholarship, Dr. Persaud is a board member of Caribbean Evaluators International. She also serves on several committees of the American Evaluation Association. Her research focuses on blending the tools of project management and accounting to improve the practice of professional evaluation. Alfredo Dominguez is a Mexican evaluator dedicated to the development of evaluation skills in young and emerging evaluators, as well as in senior evaluators. Tireless promoter of the culture with more than 10 years of experience as a consultant in planning, monitoring, and evaluation in the public sector at national levels, supporting government entities to improve management results, promoting transparency, competitiveness, and evaluation. Valerie Gordon is an independent international development consultant with over 16 years of experience in M&E. She has overworked in the Caribbean, Africa, and the Pacific, undertaking multiple monitoring and evaluation activities. She is currently in her second term as president of the CEI. Celeste is the current general coordinator of ReLAC. She is a political scientist and holds a PhD in public administration with a dissertation about professionalization in evaluation in Latin America and the Caribbean. With more than 15 years as a lecturer and a researcher in political science and public administration at different universities in Argentina and Latin America, and as a public policy trainer in Córdoba subnational government, and is an active member of Evaluar, the Argentinian Evaluation Network. Since 2015, she works as international consultant about national evaluation capacities development for WFP, UND, DIVAL, FOSELAC, UNICEF, UNESCO, FLACSO. She is an active member in Evaluar since 2013 and board member 2019-2021. Let me tell you a little bit about the panel dynamics. For each of the three topics, there will be guiding questions. A representative from each VOPE will have 5 minutes to respond to the questions. Once the topics have been covered, we'll begin with the Q&A, for which we kindly ask you to send your questions through the chat. To wrap the session up, the VOPEs will present those remarks. So let's begin with the analysis of the first topic, context of monitoring and evaluation. Celeste, please briefly introduce our audience to ReLAC and tell us what are your thoughts on what is the social and political context in which evaluators play their roles. And how can we ensure that cultural difference and contextual factors are adequately considered in evaluation? Celeste, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. What a hard work to do it briefly, but I will try. Okay, let me share with you some, or let me present ReLAC. Well, as you maybe know, ReLAC, of course, I want to thank the organizer for inviting us to this great opportunity to share ideas with the Caribbean international evaluators and strengthen our culture in evaluation. As you know, ReLAC is close to celebrate its 20th anniversary next year, so we are really proud of this. And we are made up of 15 members currently, with national VOPEs and institutional members from the Academy, and representing 15 countries, and with approximately reach of 2,000 people on average. And we are organized, as you know, ourselves in our main body, the General Assembly, the Executive Committee, made up of intergenerationally represented from 6 different national VOPEs, and the operational body with that are the working groups. We have now 5 working groups, and the accountability committee. As you know, our mission is to be the network that articulates the evaluation ecosystem in Latin America and the Caribbean, and contributes and promotes new ideas, concepts, guiding frameworks, the colonial epistemologies, for the Caribbean and Central and the South America, making some impact in the global community with our participation, and thinking about monitoring and evaluation from our context. As you, as you can see, our current administration is mobilized by 4 axes. The stronger ReLAC, which means that we work inward and outward, strengthening our members' advocacy, For example, trying to strengthen their links with governments, and of course, a bigger or larger ReLAC, trying to include more VOPEs and more subscriptors, because we don't, as we have a new bylaws from 2020, we can add not only VOPEs as general members, but institutional members and individual subscriptors. We try to, we are hard working for a more united ReLAC too, optimizing our communication between VOPEs, between each other, and between other regional sister networks. And we are working hard for a more inclusive ReLAC, you know, mainstreaming the gender, interculturality, and human rights principles. So this is a brief, very brief presentation of ReLAC. And regarding your questions that are, very important questions, thinking about context, we want to, I would like to highlight that we are distributed in at least 3 different subregions, social and culturally speaking. We can think about the North, the Central, and the South America, but some people want to talk about the Andean region too. So we have to speak about different cultures, different regions, with more than 600 million of inhabitants and almost 500 different languages, because if you take into account the native ones, we have at least almost 500 languages, with a life expectancy of 80 years in average. We can say that we have at least 3 or 4 generations living together. We need to talk about migrations, diasporas, and the different settle of international organizations, depending on how international cooperation interprets our average income, for example. So we have different historical and cultural development that affect our different ways of doing, also in planning and in evaluation, different evolutions of evaluation, and of course, different levels of development and strength of evaluation. For example, as you know, evaluation is mandatory in some countries, but some don't even have norms for evaluation. On the other hand, VOPEs are stronger, more institutionalized in some countries and weaker in others. So it depends on the context of each country. I think, you know that governments change frequently. So this is a social and political context, very hard and difficult. Have evaluation process permanently and institutionalized, and that is a very an obstacle we have to deal with. I think the constantly limited resources, as you know, to attend rights, limits or make some limitations of the evaluation processes in countries, and of course in subnational governments too. So are some social and political contexts in which we as evaluators play our roles and need to be flexible and adaptable to work with. I don't know if I took my 5 minutes or more than that.
Yes. Thank you, Celeste. Of course, but you pointed out a lot of important things. And important things, what you are shaping is, of course, is to speak about the many differences present in the regions. But as you say, the range from historical and cultural difference to different levels of evaluation capacities, as well as the strengths of each evaluation systems, of course, it's going to start shaping the context. So let's thank you so much. So Valerie, let's go with you. The institutionalization of meal at the government level is not consistent in LAC. How can networks such as CEI and ReLAC work to overcome these challenges toward a more homogeneous development without overseeing the relevance of context? Before answering the question, please share with us a little bit about CEI.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And so happy everyone could join us here for this about second collaboration with CARICOM, ReLAC, and Salisis to observe G-Local Evaluation Week. All right, so interesting. ReLAC is going to be 20, I think, next year, and CEI will be 10 years old next year. So big sister, big brother in many ways, right? The vision of the Caribbean Evaluators International is a Caribbean where sustainable human development is driven by evidence-based decision-making and informed by a robust monitoring, evaluation, and learning community of practice. Our purpose, we see ourselves as an independent regional voice and body that will work to drive and facilitate the strengthening of the region's monitoring, evaluation, learning, and capacity, and also drive the demand for and use of evaluation in the Caribbean region. Next, so how are we organized? So we are an entity, we have a 7-member board, currently 1 vacancy, but and then 3 VOPE representatives. So our board members oversee areas such as partnerships and strategic planning, professional development and training, which Nadine is in charge of, membership and recruitment, and retention, marketing and communication, finance and fundraising, and publications and evaluation practice. Of course, along with our board, the 3 VOPE representatives from Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago sit with us regularly in our executive meetings. So that's how we're kind of organized, and the board members undertake various tasks within their areas and co-opt members to help to support those activities. So this is kind of a profile of our membership. As I said, established in 2014. Our membership actually is around 80 to 85 persons, because we do collect dues. You do have members who are longstanding, but for one reason or another on a particular day may not be up to date on their dues. So you might see these numbers fluctuate, sometimes quite a bit. We're a member of IOCE, that is the International Organization for Cooperation and Evaluation, and of course, IDEAS. And we have a partnership, which we are very proud of. We've just established with UNICEF. We've undergone a very rigorous process to be vetted. And we're undertaking actually an interesting project, monitoring of the cash disbursements to Venezuelan migrants who happen to be, who have moved over into Trinidad. So immediately, you know, when this happened, I said, no, this is a real opportunity for cooperation with ReLAC, because Spanish speaking, you know, migrants, right? So anyway, we're working on that right now. And we're also proud to say we have established the Young and Emerging Evaluators Group. A number of them you will meet later on in the week in their sessions. They've been very active, and we actually have 2 YEEs working with us on that UNICEF project, which is providing a dual opportunity, using their skills and of course, mentorship, you know, mentoring them while they go through the process of assisting us in implementation. Was there another slide? Okay, yes. Our strategic priorities, these are our 4-year strategic priorities, including increasing professional development, knowledge sharing and networking This has always been a very high priority for us in the Caribbean because we know that the M&E and MEAL in particular is still quite new, and there are very few practitioners in the region. We want to advance the visibility and involvement of CEI in meal globally, really. Advocate for quality meal practice in the region, and also strengthen membership recruitment and retention. And obviously, in order to support those activities, we have to be able to strengthen our organizational sustainability. All right, I've used up too much time on that, but in terms of context, we recognize that there are vast differences and a lot of similarities between the Caribbean and Latin America. Latin America population is like 600, I think, million. We are maybe 10, 12 million. We have different types of political systems. Many countries in Latin America have much more developed MEAL systems than in our region. And certainly we want to be in a position where we can learn and share more across the borders, notwithstanding the language barrier of how we move from one stage to another. So notwithstanding the differences, we anticipate a future where there'll be much more collaboration and, sharing. I'll close off there.
Tanya, your microphone is muted.
Okay. I thought my mic.
Thank you, Alonso. No, it was me. Thank you. Thank you. It was me. Again, thank you for the importance of pointing out the difference, but it's more important about the great opportunity of trying to work together, enhancing the similarities, because of course every country is different. The context shaped the differences.
Yes.
However, we know that working together and learning from each other is a really efficient way to have our meal system strengthened. Now let's talk about culture. Nadine, from your perspective, what are the cultural factors that influence the way evaluation is done? Go ahead, Nadine. I can't hear you, you're muted.
Alonso, are you going to put up the PowerPoint or do you want me to share? Okay, great. Okay, so cultural factors that influence the way that evaluation is done can be grouped into three broad categories: individual, organization, and country specific. Some of these factors, of course, can overlap between the three headings. Culture encompasses a broad array of issues that collectively define us individually as a particular population or community, or as a profession or organization. At the individual level, our training and orientation naturally biases towards preferred ways of doing things. Our beliefs and value systems also shape how we interpret and see things. Our religion, along with demographic characteristics such as age and gender, also orient us to doing things in a certain way. From the organizational perspective, the culture in which the evaluand is embedded is also important and intricately linked to the evaluand's context. Organization cultures tend to be quite dynamic and evolve from values, beliefs, and attitudes. Notably, some cultures are maintained from the time the organization is incorporated and becomes the norm for generations. In other cases, culture evolves in direct response to leadership. Thus, as the leadership philosophy changes, culture constantly changes. Organizational culture also encompasses the way in which things are done, the politics of play, and diversity and norms of the stakeholders who interact with the evaluand. These factors can all influence the manner in which the evaluand is managed and or operated, as well as the manner in which it is viewed and used by society. Understanding the evaluand's culture is thus critically important. Evaluators who are not culturally responsive or respectful will most likely not be successful in gathering data or gaining any meaningful input from stakeholders. From the country perspective, culture is shaped by norms, values, religion, and traditions. It is also shaped by laws and rules of behavior common to society or country. Time, for example, is an important cultural element. In some cultures, being on time is absolutely important. In other cultures, time is of little importance. Language is also an important part of culture. Certain words, gestures, mannerisms, etc., can mean entirely different things in different cultures. So we have to be very careful when we are going into another culture that something that is quite acceptable and would come across as being nice in our culture is not interpreted as rude, vulgar, etc. in another culture. So to sum up, nobody can ever know everything about any culture. Therefore, as evaluators must develop the capacity to not make assumptions and respectfully ask the right questions. Doing prior research can avoid many cultural mishaps. Do you want me to, Tanya, you had said I was only to speak on this, but do you want me to go into the next slide as well?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay, so on this one, regardless if we location, we all have similar aspirations. Everyone wishes for a basic standard of living, which includes shelter and basic human rights, such as access to clean water and sanitation, equity, jobs, and so on. There are always benefits to working together, and we do collaborations and partnerships, more strong collaborations and partnerships, more powerful voices in negotiations on important issues, speaking with one voice, more diverse and synergistic solutions to address the development agenda. Still, I don't believe that while we have many benefits from collaboration, that we should think one approach to transformational form, much less advance a complex development agenda. Seeing us as one ignores a critical issue, context. Insight into context is absolutely essential to understand what is possible and what is not. Countries in LAC are quite diverse, quite apart from landmass and population size, which creates very unique challenges for smaller countries. Countries in the region have different developmental potential, political stability, and so on. Moreover, some countries are considerably more exposed to nature-induced geological events, such as hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, compared to others. Traditions, beliefs, value systems, and so on are quite different within the region, with some countries in LAC being influenced and shaped by European colonization and slavery. Even understanding the interplay of power dynamics and partnerships with international funders and how this limits policy space and policy action for smaller countries is important. Uniqueness, as well as its peculiarities of countries in this grouping, therefore need to be considered, since policy priority within individual countries may need to be on different areas. LAC as one does not consider the diverse array of forces and factors that are at play and affect countries in the region differently. So while we have great scope for collaboration, I really think that it is important that we also look at the context individually within the countries, so that we can direct policy action to the specific area of need within an individual country.
Thank you so much, Nadine. I enjoy your schemes, but also it also present really clearly what are all the issues around culture. What are the factors, individual, organizational, and the context that influence culture? So it was really, really clear. Thank you so much. Alfredo, despite the fact that culture largely shapes evaluators' perspective, as Nadine presented, the temptation to compare is strong. How can we balance the need for standardized evaluation methodologies with the need to adapt to local context and cultural practice?
Okay, Tania, thank you. And the first thing is I love one of these comments because I think we gain a lot of understandings or difference. And we have a common path. And if you give me just a minute, I have some points. And the first thing that I believe is we need to avoid compare systems. We must identify that we are different and that we have different needs and our context is different. And I think this path have the chance to discuss about the context, about the capacities of our countries, about the factors that influence the evaluation and how the cultural, the religion, the government or the framework of the laws that is the basis of the evaluation can be some issue to understand that the needs are very different and that we need use the spaces to discuss or use the spaces to try to learn from our other countries and try to bring something to our context because we are different, we have different needs and we cannot use something that works in other country or works in other contexts. So I think the idea that this space is a space to open the discussion and is the first step in a long way to still discussion about the evaluation is for me is an excellent opportunity. And I think there is a lot in front to try to still discussing. So I think the first idea is try to not compare and try to bring something to our scenario and try to make our context rich with the ideas that there are in other countries. So I think it's all I could add in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, you present how important is the context and the difference in culture. However, we want to compare. And it's just natural for evaluators and an evaluation community, right? To try to use these methodologies to do so. So let's move on to collaboration. The final topic of this panel, Valerie. Please tell us what could be concrete tools and actions for collaboration between VOPEs to strengthen our evaluation, how to come them together.
Okay, thank you, Tania. In terms of collaboration, it is clear that as a younger organization, we have a lot to learn from those who have gone before and gone a little bit further. We know that even though, you know, there is Latin America, it is very diverse. And even among those, there are countries that have different systems, that can be adapted perhaps. But the point has been well made that one size does not fit all. So we do have to look at the suite of opportunities that are offered and the methodologies that have been applied in different country contexts to see which ones work. In this region, I think it's very common in terms of evaluation, for example, that we use the OE, principles. I think in terms of those, I find in my own practice that, you know, in looking at evaluations, there are opportunities there to contextual actions, how you approach looking at implementation methodologies, how they match the political and social context, and so forth. And I think the value is in the application and contextualization. I think in terms of collaboration, though, it would be good to have a common point of departure between, even though we're not homogeneous and so on, a common point of departure for the region, we recently had dialogue, well, starting about a year ago, on standards and guidelines for the region. And that is something that we very much would like to take up further, because we see a difference in perspectives and the way in which different aspects are highlighted. But I do believe that we have the willingness to come together to make those more, what should I say? Not homogeneous, but more standardized then across the broader region, rather than focusing on a particular, you know, a number of countries in a particular region. So we very much look forward to that. I think that's one of the collaborative activities we want to take on very soon.
Thank you so much. And of course, as you said, try to have some standards for the region. Well, criteria for the region will help, but also will establish some common language, right?
Mhm.
So let me go with Celeste. You already know what official languages are spoken.
Yeah.
So cooperation, collaboration, and consensus.
Yeah.
When we do not speak the same language, how to make it possible?
You know, I wrote a sentence Valerie said, I think, and I want to add something. How to don't let no one behind if one size doesn't fit to all. So that's I think that's the thing, you know. So as Valerie said, I think our common element is maybe that we are different, and that's our richness, you know. So to think about collaboration, we need to talk about to have a point of departure, to have more dialogue, to articulate our with other stakeholders, because as I didn't say at the beginning, we have a lot of allies, you know, and we have to work with them. And they are not, our allies are not only the international cooperation, you know, our civil society, our VOPEs and governments are the big stakeholders in this ecosystem. So maybe we have to share like peers, because as Nadine said, we have a lot of decolonized perspective to share and to work with. So I was thinking about the point of collaboration, and I thought that we maybe need to try to have more dialogue about some concepts we have in our different languages and different way of thinking and being, and make a big and great effort to work in an interregional VOPEs book, or maybe a statement, you know, because this could be a first product we can have to share as an integral region, you know.
Mhm.
I can hear.
Yes, of course, yes. And this event, it's that kind of opportunities you're talking about, right? I see Nadine's hand up, so please go ahead, Nadine.
I just wanted to jump in here because I've never really thought about this question until I saw it on the concept note. I don't speak any other language except English. Unfortunately, I gave up both French and Spanish when I was in school. So I'm really happy that my fellow panelists actually know English and can speak in English so that I can understand what's happening. But when I thought about it as, because I wasn't sure what questions we were going to be asked, I think first and foremost, patience and respect is absolutely important. When you do not understand another language, you tend to get aggressive, disrespectful, because you want to know what's going on, but you really don't. So you have to, first of all, develop that patience and respect. I think there are programs now that can be used as language translators. As someone is speaking, it is translated automatically. So obviously, we need that type of technology. I thought about keeping written communication bilingual to help with the process and to make sure that everything is consistent and recorded properly. And be extremely careful if we are using, coming back to the culture, if we are using mannerisms, gestures, slangs, etc., since we need to speak with one voice, collaborate and have consensus. We don't want something that in a Western culture, English culture, one way, but maybe the total opposite in another culture. And that can be very distasteful and disastrous. So I really thought this was an interesting one when I saw it. I had, as I said, never thought about it because I never thought that I needed to go outside of my comfort zone, which is English, since I gave a book at school and never really mastered anything. But I thought these were some ways that we could perhaps overcome those barriers.
Yes, yes. And you know, one of the first things that we discussed when we talked with Celeste and with Valerie about the panel is in which language we're going to, right? So we tried to translators, and it was a lot of money that didn't have, because what we want, and we know that LAC, everybody talks about the region, but at least we have two main languages, at least. I said more than four, of course, but you know, it's really difficult. So one thing that using what Valerie said and what Celeste just said is to have common criteria around meal activities. It became our language. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish, in English, in French, in Portuguese. It's trying to have something that, no matter if we are Jamaicans, if we are Brazilians, if we are Mexicans or Argentinians, we can recognize ourselves talking about meal practices. So of course it's a great challenge, but also I think it outlined a clear path to collaborate between VOPEs and between countries. So one thing that I know that organization and VOPEs are great doing so is identifying good practices, identifying a way to do better. So I think this session has opened a lot of ways, not only to start engaging more, but also to be creative about how to collaborate, taking a knowledge of context and culture. So we have an A part, and I see that the chat is start to say a lot of questions. So let's start with the three that I just watched in the chat. Celeste, what are the main challenges of articulating collaborative networks between regions that are different, not only in language, but also in culture and history, as you mentioned? How could ReLAC address these challenges? Go ahead.
Oh, what a great question. And hard to answer. Well, as you know, and Valerie and I were talking 2 years ago, and ReLAC and CEI were talking too many years ago to make a better collaboration. You know, barrier was one of the obstacles, as Nadine said. But I love the common language is our criteria of evaluation or thinking about evaluation in the region. So maybe this is the one of the things that are positive for us. And I think one of the obstacles, of course, is not only the language, you know, because the distance and the different cultures that we don't know, but because we have yes, we have an example. We were talking about the standards of evaluations, and of course we need to talk about this a little bit more, because maybe when we talk about standards, we are talking about standards for a kind of region or a part of the region, you know, because we don't know the culture of other parts of the region. As you said, Tanya, we are at least 46 countries. So with different cultures, with different history, and social and politically very diverse. But I said, we need to stand in the richness, I think, of our differences and work with that. That's why we talk about context all the time, because we need to adapt criteria, but maybe we need criteria more general adapted to our region, but not for each country, you know. Maybe we can share some ideas, some concepts, and agree with some ideas and some concepts. So maybe this can help us. I don't know. I don't know if I answered. Sorry.
Yes, I think you have, but also I think that it's not what you're pointing out. It's that there's not a recipe. It's about, you know, a flexibility and taking as I think that it's not, there's no one size that fits all, but knowing and sharing good practices or lessons, right, about the challenges we face in our countries and the way we relate with others, it's a good way to start, and it's a good way. Valerie, what are the similarities that can bring the Caribbean closer to Latin America? And from there, build bridges of collaboration in M&E. You're muted.
Right. I mean, well, certainly we are in the same geographical space, right? It's not too difficult to get from here to there and so forth. And in fact, I do know that the government of Jamaica, actually in our very first G-Local that we had at Salisis in person, the ambassador somebody from the ambassador's office of Mexico came. And it was interesting because the government of Jamaica had been working together with Mexican government, and a number of government officials had gone there to understand their system. And we found it very fascinating that there could be an entity like Carnival is in government, you know. In our system, you know, it's kind of government, you know, kind of leads in most things on policy. I think even though, and so we're in the same space, so that facilitates movement and collaboration. I believe that technology can help us to bridge whatever language gaps are there. I do have to explore some more. I think the desire for similar development challenges, you know, we have a lot of, well, in many parts of Latin America, there's a lot of migration, people moving around. Caribbean people also migrate a lot. We have a huge diaspora, and it's the same for Latin America. We can draw from those to, you know, enrich, because it just broadens our diversity. So I think in looking at the Caribbean and Latin America, it's like you're at a buffet table, you know, and it's not something to be scared of. There are very many dishes, but you can try and see what it suits your palate and your digestive system. And I think we have to open ourselves up to that, to understanding more about the different systems that exist, and see what we can pull into our own and vice versa. So
Thank you, Valerie. I always use the buffet analogy for evaluation, because it's like when you to eat the chocolate cake, but with an evaluation, you start eating the soup, the spaghetti, the meatloaf, all of it, right? So yes, I love it. Nadine, contexts are of utmost importance for both countries and regions. But when we have global agendas, such as the SDGs, what do you think is the best way to learn globally to improve locally? I mean, how can we have at the same table so many different cultures and contexts trying to solve global and therefore common problems?
Okay, so we still have to meet the same agenda, even though the context may be different. We still have to have things like gender equity. And as we speak about gender equity, the focus has when it first started to be debated, it was always on the female aspect, inequity in the workforce, etc. But really and truly, I thought about this only 2 days ago. We have a lot of males falling along the wayside. And so when we start to talk about gender equity, we still have to promote those issues to have more equality between pay, etc., less discrimination against women, but we also have to start to bring the males in as well when we think about gender equity, because they're really falling by the wayside. We have more females now being educated at the tertiary institution level compared to males, etc. So we have the same desires, we have to reach the same goals. Context is totally different, but as the discussion has been focusing on, we have to try and find some common ground. As Elise said, many things are going to be different, but we can, and there's no recipe is going to be perfect, but we have to have that recipe and we have to tweak it as we go along to make it context relevant, because if we don't make a start, we will get nowhere. We have similar things and ideas coming together, everybody coming together. There are great synergistic solutions that can evolve from people coming together. You may disagree initially, but that disagreement turns into a positive that you can see the light and how you can actually move forward. So I think that in working towards the SDGs, we do have to take the context into account, but yes, we still have to have this dialogue, because certain things that somewhere in another culture is doing is certainly applicable to us. How we make use of that information is entirely up to us. We have to be creative. We have to be willing and open to learning, which is important. If we are very individualistic and very biased in our thought process, we cannot learn from each other. So we have to be more open-minded as we think about how we can work with the basic recipe, because it's always the basic recipe for the cake, you know, and then it is modified as we try to make it into this grand dessert or whatever. So we have to start with the basic recipe and then add on to that.
I love it. I'm already beginning to want to go to lunch because of all the food analogies over here. But yes, of course, one of the things I love for being an evaluator for a lot of years, it's actually adapting all over every time, getting creative, open to learning, you know, finding new ways. But also it's because about relationships. What here in Local we want to do is try to start building and strengthening an evaluation community and having all the point of views from the region, Latin American and the Caribbean. It's a great way to strengthen this, but not only in an individual way, but also in a communitarian way, right? Alfredo, I know I already asked this, but this is a really poignant discussion. We evaluators seems to like compare analysis. Of course, it even seems inherently human to compare. But when we have to talk about using evidence interventions, how can we recognize our differences and from there achieve a common but contextually different language?
Yeah. Well, just let me take my note, because I was pointing something that Valerie, Nadine, and Celeste, and Emani, commonly, we need to understand that this concept have to be different possibilities in each country. So I think evaluators love compare, but a recipe, as Valerie said, is the basis. So we need to understand that all the concepts need to be reinterpreted in each country, in taking the possibilities as the basis of the activities to be developed in the evaluation process. So I said before that we need to stop to compare. We need to use the same concept as we said before, but we need to make this interpretation, regional interpretation or local interpretation about the concept in our possibilities. I think this is the only way to really try to improve the evaluation in each country's, taking as basis the context, because, well, we said many in Spanish. Many countries in Latin America speak Spanish, but all the Spanish are different. And when we face the need to use a second language as is English, we really need to try to take all these efforts to understand the concept, to propose something that could be work for every country. So please stop to compare and try to analyze the context to promote something that works in the country in the measure of the capacities of each country. I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I love what you said, and I agree completely. And yes, about not only about the Spanish, also about the English. You know, a lot of in the Caribbean, being a Mexican is really from the American English, from the Caribbean English. I have learned a lot of new words and actually said a lot of wrong words in a really difficult context. But yes, it's really different about the language. But let me highlight something that you said. And it's not about right or wrong. It's not about, you know, trying to standardize everything. It's about learning from the process and trying to utilize some of the things that our context it's needs or enhance or maybe adapt to. So yes, of course, I think one of the things that we can learn from this evaluation week is about the topics of the evaluation week. It's about evaluation. It's an adapting and evolving process all the way, about relations, methodologies, stakeholder, the way we can use, and we have to be really open, as Nadine said, right? To try to adapt and better use the evaluation or the evidence that generates monitoring and evaluation. So I think that this you know, this exchange has been really, really important. So maybe I could open the dialogue to all the participants, and maybe somebody want to ask another question for our panelists. Or if not, maybe say something about the discussion, about the context, the culture, and the collaboration around evaluation. So I am opening the mic to anyone that wants to share something about it, or maybe share something that is happening in their country and start and share it with us. Don't be shy. Go ahead. Let me see. Oh, Shelly want to say something, but she already left. So I don't know.
I think Alfredo had his hand up for a second.
Oh, do you want to say something else?
Yeah, just to use the time, we are facing.
Yes, of course.
We are facing a new reality in the world about the use of new technologies, and that was one of the points that was mentioned in the previous intervention. So there is such a big opportunity to work together between ReLAC and SAY to really improve all the process using the artificial intelligence in the process of evaluation. And I think it's one of the branch that we can use in this broad process to learn something about the countries in the process of evaluation. And well, it's some interesting point to really face because there is a lot of people thinking that the machines could replace evaluators, and I think we have such a big opportunity to really use artificial intelligence, and it's a good point to start talking about something else about methodologies, because methodologies are there, and we need to understand how some more elements can improve the process of the use of the methodologies in our context, and it's an easy way to start talking.
I agree with all you have said, because of course, I don't know if an artificial intelligence can set one word with the different meanings in different countries, right? But we as persons can do that, and also we can promote the use, because we can persuade, we can feel, we can build rapport with other people in order to use evidence to improve policies, and with that to improve lives. But yes, of course, there are so much we can talk about, but so much that we can learn from each other. So perhaps, and maybe we can keep on talking about culture, and maybe Celeste, you can maybe share with us a little bit about the context of what right now Argentina is going with their M&E systems, and maybe talk about a little bit. Chris just pointed out how the context, the culture, or collaboration can enhance the strength of the system.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. You know, Argentina is a special case. Well, we have now currently we are working in a possible agency of evaluation after long. Yes, I think after a long time, and we are recently recognizing the stakeholders, you know, because the national VOPE was not recognized, for example. Even when it has now it's an association, you know, it's institutionalized and moreover. And government is creating a platform, I think, but only a government platform. It doesn't have, it didn't invite the other stakeholders. So we are working hard to invite civil society, VOPEs, for example, academia, etc. But yes, I always say that the countries that doesn't have that culture of evaluation institutionalized, I don't know, have great opportunities too, because we are not so, I think, limited with some norms and laws, you know. So we can start on some ideas that we have a great offer professionalization training in Argentina, and that's great. So maybe we are trying to start from another point, and the great thing in Argentina is that our VOPEs participants are part of government, you know, so they are public employees, the majority. So it's a very different context, for example, of Mexico, you know. So maybe it's a very different, or maybe a common context with Jamaica, I don't know, Santa Lucia, I don't know. That's why we need to have more dialogue, because we need to know how we are doing, and we need to know that we are very similar. We are countries with very similar evolution of the evaluation cultures. Even when international cooperation see our countries as, I don't know, middle, high income average, I don't know, you know. So I think we have some some prejudices, or I don't know how to say, prejuicios, from countries, from different countries, and we need to learn more about each other.
Yes, I think you bring up two main, really important topics. The first is that the cooperation is not only VOPE between VOPE, but it's academia, government, VOPEs, and how can we actually learn from that? And the second thing is, of course, the region, there's a similarity between our countries. We are ranked as middle and high income countries. So we don't get as much as other countries as aid, no, and funding other countries in other part of the world, because they say that we can do it by ourselves. And when we live in our countries, we know that we cannot do that. So the other option is actually collaboration. Collaboration, South-South collaboration, or other type of evaluation that can help us learn how to do things. And to ask Nadine, you are from the academia and you are from a VOPE. So how to enhance the collaboration with governments around, what is point of view around it?
I believe that I'll try more in my academic writing, but I think we need to do much more than that. I think a really great way to engage government would be something I spoke about when I first joined as a board member. They talked about this conference, which has never occurred, right? And a conference that was initially being planned by them, but I really think it needs to be a joint conference, and we have to get a prime minister that is passionate and can buy into the process to pitch the pitch for us, because we're going to do it sitting here as evaluators in our individual space. We have to get leadership to buy the process. It has to be driven by leadership will walk the talk. We need to get somebody who is very vocal when they're speaking in a regional environment, get buy-in at a regional level, because we really do need to have buy-in to M&E. Culture really needs to be developed. So I think we have to work together on that conference, but maybe we need to have that joint conference with ReLAC, figure out which of our leaders among the countries would be a good spokesperson to open and launch that conference for us, and then see where we can move from here.
Nadine, I love what you already pointed out, and it's the need of right champions within the government to start having an exchange. However, Alfredo, you have experience working with governments. Can you share with us some experience around having or not having an enabling environment, not having a champion, but you know, the need to have one, and how you do that and maybe you can share some experience around it?
Yeah. Well, in all process of M&E, a champion is a very important part, because you need something that believe in the process of M&E and the use of evidence. And if you don't have one, you need to find someone that make the effort to try to put the evidence in really as a tool to take decision. And well, if you want an example of governments working without evidence, you can choose one, and you can find in some government some people that is not using evaluation. But I think it's more relevant trying to find some scenarios where the people is using evaluation, and you can see in in the way they take decisions. They use data. And one of the things that we need to understand is that one of the things that don't work in Latin America is the people doesn't use data and doesn't have data. And one of the things that is extremely hard to understand is why the people choose an indicator, and if the people don't get the results they think that they will have with the policy, change the indicator. And it's a very common problem. So the first thing that we need to do is find something that use the data, someone that believes in the use of meal, and people that really like to involve in the process of meal, because it's not only government, it's the social organization and academy and VOPEs and all the people in the use of data, and trying to ensure that the data that is collected keep in the time, because I don't know, in many countries when the government goes with the data, and well, this is something that we can try to avoid, and have someone that really believes in the meal process, and the use of evidence is one of the things that we have to try to keep always in the process.
Thank you. Valerie, I think you want to say something about it.
Yes.
Come on.
I do buy into the idea of champions. You know, sometimes things don't change until someone is, prominent steps forward with it. As Nadine says, I think we have the CEI has not been as forceful as this is as needed to really elicit that response and start dialogue. And we have looked, for example, I think through the for action activity, where the parliamentarians in Asia have become very engaged, and it was through the action of the VOPEs and the YEEs and so forth over there. So that is something. But Hippolina, I don't want to put her on the spot, although I am doing so, but there has a lot of work going on in the CARICOM region government. So I don't know if she has seen any light on the horizon regarding a possible leader for that we could engage with. And I don't know if she wants a word about that, or I know some countries are probably more than others. Yes. And her hand is up, so I'll stop here.
Go ahead, Hippolina.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session, which I think is going excellent. Very, very good ideas and discussion going on here. I have a bit of good news, I think, but I can't make any commitment at this point in time. But I think we have something that we can build on. When we started the development of the CARICOM RBM system, we recognized that very issue, that we needed a champion. And Valerie, you'll be happy to hear that the government of Jamaica, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, was seen as that champion, to the effect that we now have an MOU with the government of Jamaica to support the CARICOM RBM system. And back in the day, our very good friend, deceased Sean Gray, led that process. But we still have an MOU, it's still very valid. And the reason why I said I didn't want to make the commitment is because it has not been discussed in the context that we're speaking right now. But I think having already established that relationship and that MOU, I think it is something that we can explore. We also have Dominica and St. Lucia that we are that are part of the pilot that we're having right now. So I think these are possibilities as well. They were very happy to be part of the pilot. We did engage a few member states, and the three that we have were quite interested in being part of the pilot. We also have, at a different level, some very strong interest coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, So I think with some dialogue and discussion, we should be able to identify a champion in the context that you're speaking. And just to say also that we have mandates from our heads of government as well as our Unity Council of Ministers, and these are the two highest decision-making bodies within CARICOM. And they both of them, they have mentors is to adopt. I'm sure I've mentioned as well as and Vibrant Heads, St. Vincent, Grenada. Among our heads, we can identify champion or more, but would have to undertake the conversation with them in order for us to for them to do who is going to. And I think in it's like that, it's a situation of the more the merrier.
Of course.
Exactly. Thank you, Paulina. And let me add a little bit or a trick about, of course, champions are important, but more important for me in my experience is the incentives that people have and that can become them, we can make them champions. People need info to make decisions, but they're really specific and it's in a really in a need basis. So if we start digging and actually learning when they take decisions and how we can start, realizing that we champions. That despite this discussion, our time has almost come to an end. I want to thank the panelists for their participation. And before asking Nadine and Alfredo to provide their final comments, outlining future collaboration between CEI and ReLAC that promote an enabling environment for M&E practices, I want to thank Alonso Derice for the work and coordination to make this panel possible, and Carla Pinel and Erika Herrera for their help in this session. So, Nadine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, so my final thoughts on how we can collaborate. More forums like this to start with. This was a very good forum. We really great dialogue. Even though everybody except for Valerie and myself are non-native English speakers, we were able to understand each other, and that was really great. So we need more forums like this, definitely. Even if they have to be held in Spanish, you will just need the translator, interpreter for Valerie and myself, because we have to have them. We can learn from each other. I wish, I'm sure you all are producing scholarship, but if it's in Spanish, I can't read it. I need it to be translated in English. So if it's something really groundbreaking that you think can help us, not everything that is written in English or Spanish needs to be translated, but those pieces that are really groundbreaking needs to be translated so that others can learn from it. Because I'm sure as I'm doing my academic writing, if I saw a really great thought in something that was in Spanish, which was translated, I could then use it and I could then try to promote it, because we have to speak with one voice. So we have to pick all the good things that will help us to speak with the one voice. So that's the first thing, more forums like this. Collaborative academic writing between the region and group would be helpful as well. Not sure how it would work if we are doing English and Spanish. Well, we have everybody speaking English here, so we can still do it, or you just translate what we are writing in English into Spanish so we can get something. I think collaboration and professional development activities would be good. CEI tries to hold a few professional development activities annually. I'm not sure what ReLAC is doing in Latin America, but perhaps we can also have some collaborative professional development development workshops that would be helpful. The conference that I spoke about is something we need to think about and plan, because that's where we're going to get that champion to drive the process. Speaking with, because if we're all committed and we are all passionate about the same thing, we have to speak, we will speak with one voice, even if it's in different languages. So what are the important pieces of that message that we're going to take, have it translated, so everybody's speaking with the same thing, right? But we're still getting the message across in whichever language. So it is important to speak with one voice on important issues, especially when it comes to things like institutionalization of meal in the region and how to address potential challenges with institutionalization. We know one of the main challenges is develop capacity building to sustain the national statistical systems, to keep them going. How can we work as a region, even though we're different, if we have already the M&E policy in place? Can we piggyback off of that instead of all of us devoting our precious, scarce human resources, which are so limited in smaller countries, to go and recreate a policy that is already pretty sound because they've done their research to create it? How can we think about collaborative efforts like that, where we are trying to save costs? We always have to think about the opportunity cost. When you read my bio, you see I'm always thinking the CPA in me comes in, and I'm always thinking what is the opportunity cost of what we are doing? So we know Trinidad for the Caribbean has developed a policy. Why should every other country take their precious human resources and go and spend all that time? Human resources, your most expensive asset, by the way, for remuneration, and go and redesign a whole new policy. Let's piggyback off and share what we can. So we need to try to design things that can be used by others with some slight tweaks. We need to think about how we can actually support each other in terms of the finances to sustain the systems. Because we can preach as much as we want, but if the reality, the financial reality is there, it's going to present a constraint. How can we help each other? When we think individually within our own families, if we have somebody with a disability, we make sacrifices we had to as a family to help that person to overcome the challenge. Let's read in challenge. So how can we help our other countries who are in more of a financial difficulty than we are, because we all have to work towards the same agenda? How can we help to sustain them and support them just until they get their footing? So we have to think more along those lines about how we can help each other. I would say that Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time. We have made great progress. 20 years ago, this topic was not even a topic of conversation. Today, we are seeing jobs being advertised in evaluation and M&E. So we have made progress. We've come a long way. It's probably not over the 5 years. You have to start it, and no matter how long it takes, you have to keep going after it. We are already committed to it. We are already driving the process, but we still need some of those political leaders to buy into the process, because they're the ones that will make the change, right? So we have to keep pushing ahead with our agenda, and that's where I'm going to leave it and let Alfredo conclude with what else he thinks we need to do.
Yeah, thank you, Nadine. Just to let you know, the CARICOM Secretariat has a model policy and a guide to use it for RVM policies. So we can share it with everybody. Go ahead, Alfredo. Closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, Nadine almost said everything, because we really believe that we need to make bridges to really follow the discussions, and we are agreeing in the most of the topics that she talked. Well, just let me point a couple of things. Maybe we can promote the use of technology to break the barriers and improve and accelerate the possibilities of each country in meal capacities. And well, I'm system engineer and I'm an evaluator too, so I'm involved in the use of technology in the process. And I think this is a big opportunity really to try to bring something to the table to make a flat floor to really improve the capacities of the country, always understanding the context of each country. And make workshops could be a great idea. And another thing that is very important is that all the technology help us to break the barrier of the idiom. So we can learn something now from a summary that is automatically developed by artificial intelligence, and you can use material in Spanish, English, Chinese, and you can have all the information now in your computer. So we have the opportunity to make a repository with information from ReLAC, from the Caribbean, from all the countries, and bring to the table to discuss about the ideas of context or the ideas of standards of some other issue that we need to discuss in these tables of meal. So I think this is one of the things that we can still talking and that we can develop for the future.
Yes, yes, I agree completely. And also remember that the GEI, the Global Evaluation Initiative, has a lot of material in their website in order to help everybody to address M&E practices. So just to let you know that, of course, this is the first day of the Global 2023, and also in the chat you're going to find information about Caribbean, other Caribbean or sessions are of tuning us on the path of the opportunities to strengthen collaboration in the Caribbean and Latin America context in the global evaluation. Thanks again, the panelists, and thank the wonderful team that I can work, and also Carla and Eric. On behalf of the Global Evaluation Initiative, I sincerely appreciate your generosity in being here with us. Good afternoon y buenas tardes a todos y a todas.
Buenas tardes.
Cuídense.
Buenas tardes.
Yeah, great. Bye-bye.
You have to start
Gracias.
somewhere.
Exactly. Bye-bye.